Now we will be recording it. So if you don't want to appear on camera, just bear that in mind as well. And we'll be sharing this with everyone who can't make it today, and then on the YouTube channel, the Finborough YouTube channel. That's it. So yeah, please welcome Liz. We can't really do much clapping, but I'll do the kind of clapping. But yeah, welcome Liz. Liz is a bit of a tour de force, I think, in theatre. So I've got a kind of intro. I'll try and run through it. Do correct me if I'm wrong. But Liz won the JMK Award, which is a very prestigious award, in 2015. And then directed The Barbarians at the Young Vic, which was nominated for an Olivier Award, which is a huge achievement. And then Liz actually co-founded a theatre company called Junction 8, and now is artistic director of Theatre by the Lake. So a real kind of uphill journey. And yeah, we're really excited to have you, Liz. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here. Nice to be invited.
Thank you so much for coming. And we find ourselves yet again in lockdown, but there's something really comforting about being able to come together. So yeah, thanks for on this kind of cold and rainy November night. It's great to be together. But yeah, my first question is always the same, and it's always just great to get a sense of people's journeys to how they got to where they are. And I always say you can answer in one sentence if you want, or you can go and talk as much as you want, up to you. But yeah, how did you become a director? What drew you to theatre? What was your journey to where you are now?
So I suppose it started as it does with lots of people at youth theatre. So I grew up in Chorley in Lancashire, and the Chorley Little Theatre was where I sort of started my passion for all things theatre. And I think I first went along when I was about 15, and I'd done bits at school, but there was something really fun about every Saturday afternoon going to the youth theatre and hanging out with a load of kids of different ages, and not just your own year group, from different schools, and you just played for an afternoon, you know. And it was one of those where there was an adult always within earshot, but it was really run by the grown-ups of the group, but actually they were only, I think, like late teens, but they felt like proper grown-ups. And so it was run by kids, I suppose, and we just got on and did our own thing without the grown-ups telling us how to do it. And I think that's a kind of thread that's continued. So I went, when I went to university, I loved theatre, but I didn't want to. All I knew that you could do in theatre really was to be an actor, and I knew I didn't want to be an actor. I wasn't good enough, and I didn't want to put myself through what actors put themselves through. I just thought I don't want it enough to go through that. But I still loved theatre, but I didn't know where I sort of sat within it. So I did an English degree, and it was the University of Nottingham, and there's quite a few people that have gone into theatre from that university. I think it's again because there was no performing arts degrees at the time, and it was just a group of students who really wanted to be doing theatre, but I took an academic degree and just hibernated in this theatre on campus and just made plays, and we put on a different play every week. And it was really inclusive in the sense that you were only allowed to be in one play per season. So it meant that hundreds of people were involved in this theatre, and it was just such a hive of activity and creativity and fun, and nobody was telling us how to do it. It was a student-run service, and that was really where I first discovered directing. And I only ever meant to do one play, and it was just one of the best experiences of my life. And towards the end of it, someone said, "Are you going to direct another play next year?" And I had, honestly, at that point, I hadn't even thought about it. And from then on, from that moment when I got asked that question, I've not stopped directing. So yeah, and then I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Birkbeck, theatre directing MFA, right, just 2 years. And unlike the other people on the course, I moved to London for the first year, and then back home for my placement. So I did a year back in the Northwest at the Royal Exchange, and then I moved to Manchester and freelanced there for a few years, started my theatre company in Chorley, and then moved to Keswick last July, and here we are.
Amazing.
That was probably
Thank
one of the
you.
longer answers I've got.
No, it was great. It was so sort of like well formed, and it's, I think there's something really heartwarming about hearing about those early days when people were making theatre and the excitement that comes out. And it's, yeah, feeling very nostalgic. I think we all are for those kind of days.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about sort of 2015, because people who attend this group are kind of at varying levels of their career. Some people are just starting, some people have sort of been around for years, and some people are sort of in the middle. And there's something about the kind of narrative of success, I guess, that we could sort of give people. But this moment where you won the JMK and you directed a really kind of critically acclaimed production at the Young Vic. What did that period of time feel like, and how did that change your career, and did it change your practice as well?
It was I was sort of, without sounding corny, I sort of got goosebumps when you were talking about it then, because I think so much at the moment, especially with everything that's going on, you're always thinking about tomorrow or the day after. And I tend to, it's only when I'm on things like this where you start to look back and you think how lucky you are to have had the opportunities that you've had. And the JMK was an extraordinary opportunity. I never in a million years thought that I'd get all the way through the process. Right up until the point where I won it. But I think the most special thing about it was I really felt by everybody involved in the process, but also then when I won the award and was working with the freelance producer Paul Jellis, and also the Young Vic and the JMK, and then the creative team that were brought on board, I just felt really supported and nurtured, but also challenged and pushed. And I have never felt quite so that much. That was the most I've ever felt, all of those things, I think. So it was an incredible opportunity, and it just it's one of those where all the things kind of came together. And I think the 18 months before that, I wasn't working. I was really struggling to work out how to get that first job. You know, and I was privileged enough to have done the Birkbeck training, and I was still, you know, you still come out and you think, well, I've learned all this stuff, but what do I do now? And I struggled with that a bit. And I was in Manchester, and I did a lot of youth theatre work and a lot of education work, and I really enjoy that, and I still really enjoy that. But I wasn't directing, and I didn't know what my next step was to direct. So I suppose for me, the JMK was the thing that started something. It got something going. But even then, after the JMK, I had that amazing experience. I didn't work for a year after that, because theatres work so far in advance, don't they, with their programme? You know, and the goalposts sort of changed a bit. But what it meant was I could set up meetings, and I had confidence in myself to put myself forward and to try new things and to set up a theatre company and to do all those things that I think it was a confidence thing really for me. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. And then later on, I worked for the regional arm of the JMK, which is really important, and they do really great work. So I was organising and coordinating workshops for Leeds Playhouse and for Home in Manchester, and I really enjoyed that. So I did that for a year or so, I think basically until I moved to Theatre by the Lake. But there are more opportunities now in the regions, and more paid opportunities to assist than there was back when I left university. So in that sort of period of time, there was more, and I really hope that whatever happens with COVID and all the rest of it, we've got to continue the good changes that have happened, and provide those opportunities for people, because otherwise it's just impossible. So yeah, the JMKs are brilliant. If there's any directors here that don't know much about it, then get on the mailing list and check them out.
Thank you. And so nice to hear about sort of the fact that sometimes after big things like that, there isn't much going on for a bit, and that's okay. And it's great to get that insight, I think, for people, because it can feel very kind of opaque sometimes what goes on behind the scenes. And
I didn't work for, I think, an entire year. I didn't do any directing. I think I did a couple of drama school shows for Alwyn. But it was just lots of meetings,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
meetings would lead to anything, and just a lot of that for a year. And in 2017 I did 5 shows back to back.
Wow.
and it was amazing. It's just, you know, so
Yeah,
it's a long game, isn't it?
yeah,
And
it is.
there isn't like an upward.
No.
I think that's one of the things I've struggled with all this time, is that there isn't an upward trajectory.
No, sorry, I said that in your intro. I was like,
yeah, and I don't
it's
see
not
it like
true.
that at all. I don't see it like that. In the same way, I might look at another director and think that they've done that. They wouldn't see it like that. It's around the houses. There's no rule. We're all different. We've all got different
100%.
experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of the opposite of what you learn at school, where it's like, you know, if you work really hard, you get this grade, and if you get this grade, you'll get to do the next step and then the next step, and then you get out into the real world, and it's not like that.
No, it's a maze.
yeah. And I say this as someone coming from a place of privilege, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think we've got to do whatever we can to make sure that we keep opening doors and not closing them.
Yeah. And now you're at Theatre by the Lake, and before, so you joined in July 2019, and no one knew what was around the corner at all. But before we kind of get into COVID territory, which we won't dwell on too long, we're all tired of it really. Let's kind of forget about that and go back to that time. What drew you to the theatre, and what makes the theatre special? Because it is a very special place, and I'd love to hear about, as someone who now knows it well and chose to go there, what is it about the space and the place that drove that?
So I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to direct a few shows there in 2017. So I got to know the theatre a bit there during that period, and it felt like a very friendly, down-to-earth place, and it was loved by its community, and it had 2 spaces, and the studio space was this lovely, really small, intimate space, and I think the audience for that, you know, they always come out whatever the title is, so it felt like an opportunity where I might be able to try new work and do some new writing, not worry about bums on seats in that sense. And Main House was a little bit less. That was less the case, but I think there was just a really positive vibe there, and I always knew that I wanted to. I think from the start of when I started directing, I always knew that ultimately I wanted to be the artistic director of a regional theatre building, and you know, ideally that would have been in the northwest of England, because that's where I see my home and my roots, and I don't want to be too far away from mum and dad. But I think yeah, I always knew that I wanted to be in that I always believed in buildings to have the potential to be a kind of hub for spaces where there's not much other theatre going on. There's not loads of theatre companies. It's like, I think, you know, the time when I've spent time in London, when I first stayed there for that year at Birkbeck, I did at times feel like I didn't quite fit in, and all of my peers around me knew about all the theatres in London and all of the playwrights in London and the directors in London, and I knew none of them. And you always get that asked question in interviews where people say, who's your favourite director? And I couldn't say, because I'd only seen them do a show, because unless you're the artistic director of a regional building, you don't see people repeatedly do work, you know, because it's not, there's just not as much stuff and not as much choice. But I think the thing that I love about that is you bring a community to you in that one place. So Theatre by the Lake is the only theatre producing building in all of Cumbria. I think it's between Lancaster, Newcastle and Scotland, I think.
Gosh.
So it's a huge area, and that what is the relationship between a building like that and its community, and I just saw the potential, I guess, for it to become more closely connected to its community, tell more stories that felt like they were from there, for there. What, you know, if we're Cumbria is producing theatre, what are the stories that we want to tell? Where are the local artists? Where are the future actors that came through Theatre by the Lake? So there was a lot. I could see the potential for where it could go, I suppose. And also it's a beautiful place. If anyone's not been, it's absolutely stunning. It's right on the edge of Derwent Water in Keswick. I think where I grew up in Chorley, it wasn't rural at all. It was a town, but my grandparents were farmers, and I think I'm always happiest when I'm in trees. So it was a rare building where I sort of got the best of both worlds. I get to work in theatre, but I get to be in the countryside too. So again, long answer to your question.
No, great.
There was lots about it that I was really excited about.
And during what's been a really difficult time for everyone globally, and especially our industry, what has sort of, I guess, what has the theatre, even though it's been closed, meant to the community? Or have you been able to keep that engagement? Has there been a way to keep a conversation going?
So we've been hit. Everybody's been hit really hard by COVID, obviously. I know that. But I think so the regional, there's a network of mid-scale theatres around the country that now we meet regularly, and we started this at the beginning of COVID, and we're still doing it now, and it's been so valuable. So lots of theatres on that mid-scale, like York Theatre Royal, Derby, Watford Palace, Stephen Joseph Theatre, that kind of scale that we're on. And I think we've been hit probably harder than a lot of them, in the sense that we closed our doors, and we lost 80% of our income overnight. We because of the nature of the model as it previously was at Theatre Valley, Carmen will know about this. We had, traditionally, the theatre's 20 years old. We had 6 shows that would perform in rep, 3 in the studio, 3 in the main house, and so a rep company of actors, and it would open in May and it would run until November. So it was a beast, and really the whole model was built around that rep season. So we had sunk hundreds of thousands into this thing that always generates income, which is how we survive. We're only 20% Arts Council funded, and we'd sunk all this money, and on top of that we had Wise Children's Mallory Towers on our main stage. We had a studio show with Pentabus that was supposed to be coming to us, and we just started on Christmas, so it was the worst time of year. We'd invested in all these productions and we had no way of making the money back. And also there's a few other things with our finances. We invested our reserves in the cafe on site, which was a way of diversifying our income and making us more sustainable. Combination of various factors meant that COVID hit us, and we were staring at a black hole pretty fast. And the job retention scheme meant that we could continue for some time and keep everybody on. We furloughed 90% of staff. I think it was more. We had 5 of us left working. And then unfortunately we had to make significant redundancies in July. So we've been hit really hard, and we've gone down. Our staff team has gone down dramatically. So therefore we haven't been doing as much activity as some of the other theatres have been doing. All those other theatres on the mid-scale have continued all of their engagement programs. Quite a lot of them, they've had Christmas shows that now obviously they've had to postpone or rethink. So there's some amazing work that regional theatres are continuing to do throughout this lockdown. We've tried to do our best with what we've got. So we've been doing a monthly play reading club, which has been really popular, and we invite the playwrights to join for the last half an hour. We finished off doing our arts awards with our young company online. We've done a community exhibition, which we're still getting submissions in for now, and that's going to reopen the theatre and our gallery spaces. We partner with Payne's Plough on Come to Where I Am, which is commissioning local writers. So we've done bits and bobs, but it's not the level of engagement our community normally has with us. We've got 200 volunteers, we've got several engagement groups. We're open at every night of the year, 2 spaces, all of our community hires. That theatre is so much to so many people, and I think people have really felt the loss of that. So anyway, on a more positive note, we were very fortunate to get the amount of money that we asked for from the government's Cultural Recovery Fund. So that's going to make a huge difference, and basically it enables us to get reopen. We're planning to reopen in February. We're going to deliver a programme of different events from February to March, and then we're looking at how we reopen in the summer properly. But in the meantime, we can get some engagement up and running again. We're taking this opportunity to basically reset the organisation and say, okay, change has happened. It will never be the same again. But where are the opportunities for positive change? What do the communities need from Theatre by the Lake now in this world? So we're really thinking about what our vision is and what our priorities are going forward, and I think it will start to look different in lots of ways. So in some ways, as hard as it's been, we're feeling quite excited and hopeful about the future.
Wow, it does. Every time I hear about these kind of experiences, especially when people get in positions of leadership, I'm always just like, they need a holiday and like a month off to just not think about it, because it sounds really, really, really hard. But it's really lovely to hear that there is, and we're kind of, I think, feeling it in lots of different places, that there is excitement and there is appetite for change, and that's really exciting. And there's something about hearing about how important it is within the community and what a hub it is, which I guess is probably quite true for many regional theatres, because they tend to be maybe just there's that one space, or there's only two theatres. And I'm guilty of sort of, for the beginning of my career especially, being very London centric, because that's where you're told everything's happening. And I did my degree in a London uni and sort of arrived and had never really been to London theatre in my life, and was like, wow, and hadn't really thought about regional theatre. And the first time I did hear about regional theatre was the conversations people were having before I actually went and saw something. And there was a lot of conversation. I always remember the conversation. It was always like, regional theatre is not given enough attention. It's things aren't working. We need to do better. And there's always this conversation. So it's really, really nice to hear that you've already said that things have been growing. But I guess I'd just love to know from your experience, like what's missing from regional theatre? What is it that's that regional theatres need to be able to grow and to be able to serve their communities? I mean, it's a big question.
Oh gosh,
to answer it. Sorry.
It's a really good question. It's a really good question, and I don't know whether there are a lot of, so that mid-scale network that I'm part of now, there are a lot of similarities, and there is something in the relationship between our theatres and our communities and the civic role that we've got to play. But whether we all need the same things and we all struggle with the same struggles, I don't know. I think there are some similarities, like for instance, I think some theatres will struggle more in terms of fundraising and the word I can never pronounce, but philanthropy. There we go. I cannot say that word quickly. So I think that kind of fundraising is trickier in some of these places, because maybe there's less money around in some of these places. Theatre by the Lake is an interesting one, because obviously there's places where there's a lot of tourism and they're very beautiful, and there's a lot of second homeowners and there is some money around, but then there's also some of the most deprived communities in the country are in Cumbria. So I suppose there are unique challenges to each place. For us, we're in a rural location. A lot of our audiences, our communities are kind of dispersed. They're spread out across a large space. So you've got financial, geographical, social, cultural barriers to engagement, and that will be different for different places. You respond to the communities that you're in, and who you serve and who you don't yet serve. So I think there are differences and similarities. I do think maybe there has in the past been some snobbery around how regional theatre is perceived, and whether regional theatres not getting the press and things, because money, everybody's budgets get cut and people don't come up and review shows, so you don't get the attention and the profile. And like I know when I was a freelance director, quite a lot of people wouldn't meet me for a coffee because they hadn't seen my work. I mean, there's so many of us trying to do it. I understand it, especially now being on the other side of it. I do understand. But people hadn't seen my work because all of my work was outside of London, apart from Barbarians.
Right.
So I think there's a lot to be considered there, and I think that there should be fairer opportunities and more access to theatre and the arts for people all over the country, not just in your big cities. So I'm not really sure I answered the question.
No, that's a great answer, and I think that you're so right. I hadn't really considered that, you know, obviously we think of regional theatre as a monolith, and it's not, because we're so used to thinking of London as, you know, it's one city, and obviously there's different parts of London and different communities and all that, but it's so different from region.
But it is so different. I mean, like you go to London and you could spend a month under normal circumstances, not now, but you could spend a month in London and see so much incredible, diverse, interesting theatre, all different styles and different artists and different backgrounds, and like, you know, it's so exciting. It's such an exciting thing to be a part of. And I do think that, like, I feel very lucky that I've been able to go down there and spend some time there and understand that, because it affects the whole country, doesn't it? It's the centre of things. But I think that, you know, some perceptions are changing, you know, like places like the journey that the Royal Exchange has gone on, for instance, Manchester. You know, I think there is a perception change that's happening. And I think there's more interconnectivity. Like, I think that will happen more post-COVID. I think you'll see more collaborations between regional theatres, between and companies, between London and outside of London. I think we're all going to want to work with each other because it's the only way we're going to come through this. And I hope that's one of the good things that comes out of all of this.
Yeah, that sounds great. And just a couple more questions, and then I promise I will let other people ask questions. But just it's funny, I've seen a lot of talk on Twitter, not a lot, but a few comments here and there about repertory theatre. Sort of in light of COVID, a lot of people, you know, the kind of Twitter philosophers who heard a kind of, and I've seen a few people being like, repertory theatre is the future. You can have bubbles, and it's the way we should do it, and it secures work for actors, and blah blah blah. And repertory theatre, you see, you know, the odd article every couple of years being like, oh, the death of repertory theatre was such a great thing, and they're still doing it in Germany, and we should be doing it here. And so that's the kind of conversation. And Theatre by the Lake, you know, you guys, that the repertory theatre season, the summer season, and there's mixed feelings about repertory theatre and whether it works or not. And as someone who almost experienced it, you kind of went through the motions, but it'd just be interesting to hear a little bit about your thoughts.
Do people know here, Carmen? Should I just explain your connection to So Carmen's play The Climbers was programmed in my first season at Theatre by the Lake as one of our main house shows. I read it. I started at Theatre by the Lake and had about 6 weeks to program an entire year's worth of work. It was completely bonkers. And I read. I was away on a holiday that I had booked way before getting the job, and I read all new plays because I wanted to make some new plays as part of that season. But obviously I knew I didn't have the time to commission new plays. I wanted to find new plays that hadn't had a home yet, that were brilliant, and The Climbers was one of those, and it really stayed with me. This is Carmen's brilliant play, and it's about she'll describe it better than I could, but it's two climbers, a couple who climb Everest, and it really, in terms of making sense for Theatre by the Lake, is there's a real kind of mountain culture at Theatre by the Lake in Keswick. We're surrounded by these huge mountains, and there's a lot of people that visit Keswick and live in Keswick for that reason. And we thought it'd be an opportunity to engage that audience, and even though it's, you know, not set anywhere near Keswick, there is something connecting to a sense of place and why it makes sense for Theatre by the Lake to programme that brilliant play. So anyway, that was supposed to be happening, and then we cancelled it because of COVID. I very much hope that we will stage the climbers in the future. We
don't have to say that, by the way.
No, I don't.
On film now.
Excited about it. And it's heartbreaking.
Some people may have seen it at the Finborough Vibrant Festival. It had an early reading. It started
its life at the Finborough, absolutely. And we're so grateful we could take it on its next stage of the journey. But anyway, it's a brilliant play, and we hope to do it in the future with Carmen. But there was a reason why I explained, rep. So Carmen knows a bit about the process of how it was at Theatre by the Lake, but I think different theatres do it in different ways. Theatre by the Lake just had an established way of doing it, that it had done it more or less the same for its 20 years. It started as a rep theatre. It started its life as the Blue Box, which was this theatre that travelled around, and then it ended up at Keswick, and it was loved by the community. And the community basically lobbied and fundraised to build Theatre by the Lake. So rep is very much part of its identity. Similar kind of model, I think, to Pitlochry. That's a rep theatre up in Scotland. The artistic director Elizabeth Newman up there. So it's what we've always done, and I think the benefits of it are that you really celebrate the craft of an actor, because the season ticket holders will watch 6 plays or 3 plays or however many they watch, but they'll see different actors take on different roles and transform in that way. There was also, and I think we with our team for the summer season that didn't happen, there was a real sense of collaboration between directors, writers and designers in a way that you wouldn't normally get across plays, which was really interesting and felt very supportive, actually. I think that's credit to the team that we put together. I guess the challenges of it for us where we are is that you're having to cross-cast across plays, which has its challenges. And also it was quite a rigid formula in terms of having what plays you could pick and what went with what. So in my season, if I, for whatever reason, couldn't do the climbers because it was happening somewhere else, my whole season would crumble because the numbers didn't work anymore. So there was a lot of things like that made it quite restrictive in terms of trying to program in the right way. So anyway, because of, as I said before, it is this big beast of a thing, this rep season, that's not going to be viable for 2021 in the current climate. So we've got an opportunity to try something different, and we'll see. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what our future model is going to be. And I don't know whether there'll be rep or no rep. We are genuinely keeping an open mind and going on this journey of listening and learning and rethinking what we could be. So we will see. We'll see about the rep. But different people have different views on it. Some people are really evangelical about the rep. It sounds like I'm not. I'm just keeping an open mind for the skeptics and for the massive pro rep fans. We don't know. We just don't know yet. But,
it's exciting to kind of think of the future, and I think keeping an open mind is something we've all learned to do better and better in these difficult times. And my final question before I ask, I'm just keeping an eye. Okay, we're a good time. Final question before I hand over to others to ask questions is, I guess there's a lot. I've been working with a young company across the kind of during this year, and I love working with young people, and the more time you spend with them, the more you remember what it was like when you were their age and how hard it was. And I genuinely feel like a huge amount of compassion for them at the moment, and I always have, but even more now. And I just feel really sorry for them, because I remember what it was like, getting that first break and the kind of the level of stamina you need and motivation. And, my motivation's down, my stamina's down at the moment. And I guess as someone who has been on that journey yourself as well, and worked with young people, what kind of advice would you give people who are just starting out their career during what's been a really difficult year?
I'm not sure. I think it's so tough right now for freelancers at whatever stage of your career. It's just it breaks. That is for me the most heartbreaking thing out of all of this, is that there's so much talent and brilliant people, all the brilliant people that I've worked with over the recent years, just to know that they're not working right now is just heartbreaking. And we've just got to keep, let's hope this vaccine can get there sooner than we might have done. So I say I appreciate how hard it is. I don't, I'm in a job, and I've got that security for now. Having said that, I think if people, I have a friend who is an actor, and what I love about her is all she wants to do is act. That is absolutely her passion. It's part of her, it's who she is, and I can't imagine her not doing anything else. I can't, and no matter what anyone says to her about whether you should be, do you want to think about doing something different, or how about this, or whatever happens, no matter how hard it gets, that's what she wants to do, and that's what will make her happy. And if she works other jobs in between or instead of at times, she's okay with that, because right now that's what she still wants to do. One day, if that changes and it doesn't make her happy anymore, she'll know about it and she'll make a change. So I think it's almost about saying, do what makes you happy, and it's also okay to not do it as well. Like I think until COVID, I was so driven that I was like, if I don't make this after investing all this time and energy and hard work, if I don't make it, then I've somehow failed. And I think COVID has shifted that in me to go, there is more to life. Like if I change my mind and do something else and take a sideways step, I've still had an incredible experience from all the people that I've met and the things that I've done and the stories that I've immersed myself in, and no one can take that away from me. So if I end up doing something different as a result of COVID, or something else in my personal life that I don't know is around the corner, that's okay. It's not a failure to do something else. So I suppose if you're working a job that isn't what you love right now, and you're doing it to pay your bills until things come right, like I'm sure lots of people don't, but if anybody is beating themselves up about that and feeling frustrated about that, it's completely understandable. But I just think, I guess do what makes you happy. But at the moment, no one's doing what they love, I would say.
That's very true.
None of us are doing the job that we signed up for. And it's tough. But then there's these little moments, and I'm sure we all have them, where we're reminded of what it is and what it should be and what it's got to be. And that keeps you going. So just hang on in there, I suppose. And it's okay if the journey's not what you expected.
100%. Thank you. That was quite a hard question. I just realized, I was like, give us the answer to all our problems. But no, thank you. That's really, it's really good to pause and remind ourselves of those things. And those are the end of my questions. I'm going to stop. I've hogged you for long enough, and I'd love to hand over to the rest of the group. If you want to pop your name in the chat, I can see the chat. I think, I can. And then I will, tell you to unmute yourself and speak. Who wants to go first? It's usually, there's always a bit of a pause at this point as people build up the courage to ask a question. But please do. Anyone want to ask a question? And you can great. Claire, do you want to unmute yourself, pop your video on, and ask your question? Hello.
Oh, hi Liz.
Hi.
Actually, can I ask one's very small?
Yes.
I've always been really intrigued about Theatre by the Lake. How many of your audience is kind of really local, and how many of them come up specially? Because it's sort of unbelievable that you could be sustainable in the way that you are, because it doesn't seem like anybody lives around there. When you live in London, you kind of think, where is everybody? But
so over the summer, it's about 60% visitors, but that includes, I think, people who have a second home there. So they're regular visitors. They're sort of still part of our community in my mind. So 60% visitors, 40% resident or local communities. And then it flips the rest of the year. So Christmas and Easter, it's 60-70%. I always forget which way around it is, but 60-70% locals and 30-40% visitors. So we have that's why the summer rep season has always been what it's been, is that you get everybody coming up for the holiday season and to enjoy the lakes. So yeah, the tourism element of it is a huge part of how we operate, and working with and local businesses surrounding us, you know, your accommodation providers and your restaurants and all of that. Like, it's a big part of how the theatre operates, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess that, well, with COVID, that could work in your advantage if everybody's going on holiday in the UK.
Well, I mean, remarkably, it seemed so busy over the summer when we were closed. I mean, with the footfall outside the front of the building, I mean, it was just constant. So we have that in our favour, I hope. But obviously, right now, and for the next few months as we reopen, it's going to be a challenge, isn't it? Because people aren't allowed to travel, all the rest of it. It'll be more challenging. But I think one interesting thing over the years has been that, you know, we've appealed. Another reason why the rep worked was because it offered a variety. So lots and lots of people are coming to visit, and there's a choice. So it's not just that you can go and see 6 plays in a week. Most people probably don't want to see 6 plays in a week. It's more about there being something for everybody, or something for the variety is quite attractive to us. So a lot of the model has been based around that. But I think what we've got to do more of is feel more connected to our local communities, and to tell more local stories, and to not see the two things as opposed. I think there's an interesting relationship between the two. But yeah, I think that the tourism and having people that, you know, an audience that will come once and might never come again because they're on holiday, is one of the interesting challenges and opportunities that we've got.
Brilliant. And can I just also ask, sort of in a way, on behalf of all of us writers and freelancers, like, we know that all of you theatres are kind of really struggling to figure out what to do and how to go forward and blah blah blah. So, you know, at what point should we be approaching you with our ideas? Should we just back off for a bit, or should we pounce?
I think, I don't know if, I think everybody's on a different time scale. I think if you'd have asked me that in the first 6 months, I would have said not right now, to be honest, because we were just crisis management and that was it for months. And now I feel like we're looking to the future. I would say for us, it's a good time. It doesn't mean that we're able to do anything about any, you know, it doesn't mean we're in a position to do some of the things that we might want to do yet. We don't know we don't know what we're going to be doing this time next year or summer. We don't know what we're going to be doing this summer, let alone anything else. But I think having creative conversations with freelancers right now about work and meeting people has actually been really helpful. We're doing we just launched our so if you know anyone from Cumbria, please tell them. We've just launched our local artist network, Cumbrian Creatives, because we didn't have a talent development network or anything like that. So we thought in lockdown, let's just find out who's out there. Let's see who's local and who's from Cumbria. We've got 200 people signed up already. We've only sent out one mailing, and on that mailing we tried to offer a range of opportunities to see what the uptake was. One of the things we've done is walk and talks. So I'm going out for a walk with people and they can talk to me about any idea that they want. They can ask me questions about our programming. They can ask anything. They just tell us what they want to talk about. And I did a few last week and I'm doing some more this week. And do you know, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed them. And some of them had things to say about Theatre by the Lake, some interesting challenges to us and to the theatre. But it was just talking to artists who are itching to make work and to learn from them about what they want from their most local theatre was brilliant. So the timing now feels quite good for us. I'm sure it's different for different theatres, but I don't think, even if you send an email and it's not replied to straight away, it doesn't mean that it won't be down the line. You know, I think we've all got to be, I've got to be much better at it. We've all got to be better at replying to those emails and having those conversations and setting up those meetings. But there's a lot that theatres at the moment aren't doing that is normally part of the routine. So it might be that some people got more time to have those conversations and to think about those ideas. And maybe, like us before, you had a very rigid model where there wasn't much space around it to try things. If other theatres like us are thinking we're open to exploring new ideas, maybe now's the perfect time.
Brilliant. Thanks very, very much.
Thank you. I love the idea of the walk and talk. Really nice.
Yeah, and it means I get out of the office or out from behind my computer.
Yeah, so nice. Got another couple of questions. So Catherine, do you want to jump on? And then Alice, you can go after Catherine. Hey Catherine.
Hi, hello, lovely. My God, lovely to see people in the flesh. Thanks, Liz. I was really learning from this. It's fantastic because I originally come from the north of England. And what I did, I've just finished a 50-minute play. I kept it really short. But it's very interesting, this whole process of artistic directors and approaching you walk and talk, which is what I'm following up on. Because I know some people say to me, I don't want to read your play. What I want to do is play with ideas so that we're working together. But then I did write this 50-minute play because I had to get it out of my system when we were all locked up and all that. And I'm going to do it as a rehearsal reading on Zoom. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and get a filmmaker friend of mine to make backdrops so that there's a hill and things like that. It's just experimenting madly to stay sane. But I'm just wondering, what is your approach? Do you want projects which are really embryonic? Do you read the play but consider itself almost there? I'm just wondering how you do that.
I think one of the challenges that I've got in terms of reading plays is that, or even when we had the full team, 57 staff, I was the only purely artist, you know, so everybody's artistic, everybody's creative, but like I was the artistic department in one person. So to try and read, so we don't take unsolicited scripts, we don't, because it's just too much. So I suppose what I was finding quite helpful was for writers or directors to approach me and say, look, I've got this idea, or I've written this play, it's about X, Y, and Z. Would you be interested in having a chat about it? Because there might have just been something that resonated, and that like then helps me to have the conversation. But in terms of whether it should be embryonic or whether it's later stage, I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule really. I guess with me in my first year, I was when I was looking at new work, I was looking for something very specific, and I was working within quite tight parameters. So I've got a rep season to program, like I was saying about how the genders work and the numbers of cast work and having a balance of season. So as soon as I put the climbers in, then I sort of got my thriller sort of play. So now I need a comedy, and it was quite rigid in terms of what I needed to fit into the formula. And there wasn't much room outside of that to experiment or try things. We're looking at wanting to be a more flexible model so that we can. So now the things I can consider now, weirdly, are very different to what I could over a year ago. So some theatres might have a very particular way of programming where they want to know what it is, and they want to know what stage you're at, and they'll only consider it at whatever stage. Where at the moment, I think I could take it at embryonic, I could take it at rehearsed reading. I'm you know, we can have the conversation.
It's very good to know that, because I know High Tides, when we talk to people from High Tides, it was, I don't want to read any full-length plays. I just want a pitch like you do with a movie. You know, actually the television template was hand that through, because that's easier to look at, and we can have an exciting conversation. It's interesting, but yeah, thanks, because that's
it's just the time. That's the challenge that we've got, because you want to read everything. You want to read everything, and you want to give feedback to everyone.
You just can't.
That when we did Come to Where I Am with Paint to Plough, we asked people to send, I think it was like a page or something.
Yeah.
But what it meant was I got to read 70 there were 79 submissions, which is more than I thought, but I got to read 79 pages. It's only a page, but it meant that you could read it, and the people, I replied to everybody, but I didn't give a personal reply to everybody. I gave a personal reply to the 10 people that we shortlisted with specific feedback, and it was so nice to be able to do that. But if I did that for full-length plays, then I wouldn't be doing anything else. And I wish that I wish there was a system that I could find to help me combat that. And maybe it's about, maybe in the future, you know, as we at Theatre by the Lake define more about what is it we want to be going forward, and we start to employ more staff again, it'll start to reflect what it is that we want.
It's interesting because at the moment I'm sitting with half-page plans for things, and I'm thinking I'm going to refine the art of half a page or 6 lines. But it's a good discipline too.
Yeah.
Because if somebody says to you, "Heck, what's your play about?" I'm beginning to think I'm going to rehearse it like you do for television stuff in 3 lines, because then somebody goes, "Okay, and now how about?" It's probably a good discipline. So I'm really happy to hear this, as well as have it ready and written just in case, because I know that happened with a friend of mine for a Channel 4 thing. They had this wonderful Bible, they had all of this, but she had refused to write the pilot. She's, you know, you'll be wasting your time. And I'm more interested in theatre, by the way. I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah.
But they said, we need to see the pilot on Tuesday, and they didn't have it, and it was a disaster. You know, it reminds me of those things. Steven Spielberg's met somebody and he said, "All right, what's your second film?" and he hadn't got it. He said, "Bye-bye." You know, I mean, that's a bit silly, but it's just interesting to get these different viewpoints. Thanks. That's great.
Great, thank you.
Good luck with it.
And Alice, do you wanna jump on and ask your question?
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Thank you so much to everyone. This is fantastic. Thank you, Sue and Carmen and Liz. I actually was going to ask a question that you've totally answered. I'm right at the beginning of my writing journey. I've only just started my MFA. I was an actor. I am an actor still, but and I just had no idea how you even went about doing anything once you'd written a play. But I can see that even people like Catherine don't know either, so that's all right. So I don't have a question.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think there are some theatres that, like, I know, for instance, with the Royal, I keep talking about the Royal Exchange because I spent more time there, I suppose, and being based in Manchester, it was like I was most attached to that theatre, I suppose. But obviously they've got the Bruntwood, haven't they? And there's there's a thing that you as an anonymous playwright can submit your play. Okay, that theatre, I know what to do with my play. I can send it to them through that. And I don't know what the equivalent is for us yet, and I think it needs some thought. But I know, for instance, when I started at Theatre by the Lake and I was looking to programme that season, and I was specifically looking for new plays that were almost ready to go, not loads more development, but hadn't, you know, because I knew they were out there, they hadn't been produced yet, but they were brilliant. That's what I was looking for. So I emailed, I spoke to agents, I spoke to directors, people sent me ideas, I met people, and I got to know people through that. And it's not any more structured than that, really. So I'm probably not being very helpful. It is really difficult. It's really difficult. But I guess the more you network's a horrible word, but the more relationships you build, the more likely it is that someone will say, "Oh, there's a really interesting play or an interesting playwright that you might want to talk to because of X, Y, and Z," and you start to make those connections. So I think, you know, even just being on a call like this, that it's doing it, isn't it? It's just like with being a director, there's just no linear way. And I'm probably not the most helpful person to talk to either about getting work out there, because at Theatre by the Lake so far, it's all been a bit random and a bit ad hoc, really. Just trying to read as much as I can when I can.
Thanks, Liz. And I'd say, Alice, just like being a writer, and again, like, not, my journey has been quite slow and up and down. And I think one, not mistake or something I regret was sometimes not sending my play to certain theatres or people, just because I was a bit scared, and because I thought, why would they, like, they're going to think it's crap. Of course I'm not going to send it. And then sort of years down the line, actually people from those theatres reading it and liking it. And that's been a real learning curve for me. So I think send it to everyone. And I remember someone saying this to me like 5 years ago, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Of course I'm not going to send it to everyone. No, that was the right advice, and I didn't follow it. Like, I definitely just say send it to like as many places as possible, because if you don't send it, they're never going to read it. But like, it sounds really silly to say, but it's true. So like, just send it everywhere, and yeah, and the more people you know and sort of talk to about it, just the more likely statistically it is that people are gonna, you know, maybe.
Yeah, because like there was one of the plays that the first play I was going to direct as artistic director was a new play by Kieran Knowles, Wilt, and I really hope that I get to do it in the future. It's a beautiful play, but there were several people when I was doing my scouting around that sent me that play and said read it. And I think because it was set in a park ranger's hut and we're in a national park, people join the dots there, and it's very gentle in its tone. It's quite I think people felt like it was a good fit. The people that suggested to me felt it was a good fit, and it was, and I loved it. But there's definitely something that happens with you as a reader when a few people have suggested it, you know, because you think, oh right, that's interesting, I've heard about that before. So yeah, I think that there's probably some truth in that, Carmen, about just trying to get it out to as many people as you can. Why not?
Yeah, it's scary, but yeah, do it.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? I think let me just check the time. Oh, we're kind of getting close to the end. So has anyone got any last questions? Don't be scared. Okay, I think I'll take that as all the questions have been asked. Maybe just before we kind of go, people can put their cameras on if they want. It's just always lovely to see everyone's faces. It's yeah, sorry, it's just when they're off, the bandwidth's just better. And oh, lovely. Hey, hello everyone. Oh, so hello.
Can we go and have drinks now downstairs?
Yay, let's go.
Good.
Got the drink, got your mugs. Yeah, lovely to see everyone, and thank you so much for coming, and for continuing to come to these meetings. They do really mean a lot, I think, and it's just really lovely to all be together. And we're going to do a bonus one this month because we missed October. I'm not sure why. It kind of the weeks and the months have been blending into one, but we're doing another one, and it's with the playwright Anders Lustgarden, and that's going to be in 2 weeks. I'm just going to check. I have sent an email out about this. You've got it in your inbox, but just let me double. The 24th, which is actually a Tuesday, same time. Same place, and I'll send a Zoom link to that. So that's going to happen. So another November forum, and then we'll be announcing a December one and a January one. And if you have ideas for guests or people you'd like, do email. Suggestions are always really welcome.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I think that's it. Unless Neil, any final words? No. You're muted.
You're muted, Neil.
You're muted, Neil.
Hey, there you are.
Sorry. Thank you, Liz. That was great. No news really. We've got online things going on. My Armenian genocide extravaganza, if you fancy payment, is on at the moment, and our crowdfunder is still going. So I know none of you have any money, but tell all your rich friends. Thank you, Liz.
No, thank you so much, and well done everybody for keeping going. It's brilliant that we all keep turning up to these Zoom calls, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But it's keeping us going, and thank you, and thanks, Neil. Yeah. And lovely to meet you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Liz, for your time. And yeah, I feel really hopeful this evening. You know, thinking about the future and thinking about new ideas. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Have lovely evenings, and yeah, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. See you. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. Bye.
What's that?